So Henry Shefflin joining Galway, that seems to be the news now. Obviously, I had the exclusive earlier on our game at around 5 o'clock that Galway had been in contact with him. I have to say I was shocked by the news when I heard it earlier today, just a little bit after interviewing Nicky Brennan, which you can check out on the OurGame playlist. So I took my time checking a couple of sources just to make sure that this was right, because a story like this is they don't come around too often in the world of GAA. And please do get your comments in and let us know what you think. But quite incredible to see Henry Shefflin joining Galway as their hurling manager. Because it's such a parochial world in the GAA, you expect that it's going to be Kilkenny or nowhere. And even just looking at Henry's track record since retiring from Kilkenny, where he obviously won so many All-Irelands and All-Stars, and racked up 3 Hurlers of the Year awards, 11 All-Stars, 10 All-Irelands. He then went on and managed Ballyhale Shamrocks, after he'd already won Club All-Irelands with them as a player, and he then went and added 2 as a manager, not to mention 2 Kilkenny titles and 2 Leinster titles. The word is that he was undefeated as Ballyhale boss, but I actually put that to him in the lead up to the Leinster final in 2019, and he had said, well, almost, but we did lose a group game or 2. But either way, his record is unbelievably impressive up to this stage. With the club, and obviously taking over Thomastown, who were his neighbours 5 minutes down the road, but they were operating at intermediate level, and the talk was that he didn't want to manage anyone at a senior level in case it was against Ballyhale Shamrock, because Shamrocks he wouldn't want to go up against his own, which I suppose they are now in the county semi-final at intermediate level against Glenmore, and they will be tipped to go and win it. So it'll be interesting to see, does he finish that season out, or a bit like Colin Bonner, who's involved with Dicksboro, does he straight away leave that setup because he wants to concentrate on the inter-county job and go watch matches in Galway, because they're heading for the quarterfinals this weekend. Now the match with against Glenmore with Thomastown won't be this weekend, it's the following weekend, so maybe he can do a bit of double jobbing in the meantime. So all of this had suggested that, not wanting to manage against Ballyhale, maybe the same would have been true at inter-county level. Eddie Brennan has already managed Laois against his home county, and came up against Brian Cody, his former manager, his only manager at the top level at Nolan Park in a league game with Laois, and obviously they came up short there. Henry Shefflin now will, of course, be coming up against Brian Cody, and this is a clash for the ages. I mean, it's going to be interesting watching Liam Cahill come up against his native Tipperary next year after not, taking himself out of consideration for that job. Now we're going to see Henry Shefflin against Brian Cody. This thing absolutely does not need to be hyped up at all. It's going to do that all itself. What's very interesting is the other storyline here is that Davy Fitzgerald, he was thought to be the one taking over, and there was all this talk about his backroom team, the likes of Louis Mulqueen, Fergal Lynch, 2 guys who were managing club teams, Liam Mellows and Castlegar respectively, in Galway, and that's, there was a couple of other names in there too. That perhaps this was an 11th hour thing, but I mean, obviously things are kept somewhat quiet. We're not quite sure when all the machinations happened, but if it's on the verge of being appointed right now as it is, you'd imagine this has been going on for a couple of days. In terms of pedigree, obviously Shefflin's club career already kind of says more than, it's fantastic already. And Shane O'Neill has been involved, the previous manager with Na Piarsaigh, they won All-Ireland, and that obviously was key to him getting the job. To win 2 with Ballyhale, it's more than enough. It's more than enough for Henry Shefflin, not to mention the fact that he walks into the dressing room, he's a legendary name. Everyone is going to straight away do exactly what he's looking for them to do. And I'm sure there'll be no shortage of effort from the players. Not saying there was anyway, but you can be sure they'll be chomping at the bit for Henry Shefflin. And the question straight away is, people are asking, will Joe Canning come back? I'm not so sure, but I wouldn't be shocked if, some people would say, can you have 2 people, 2 big names in the dressing room? But would he potentially look to have Joe involved in some way, shape or form, whether it's a selector or whether involved somewhere in his background or his coaching team? Who knows? That's going to be so interesting to see. The thing with Shefflin is he took on Ballyhale straight away, won silverware. He'll take over a Galway team that, fine, it doesn't have its star name in Joe Canning anymore, but they're still going to be expecting to win straight away. I mean, within the county, there's now expectation of kicking on. They probably felt they were drifting a little bit in the last year or 2, didn't play particularly brilliant stuff. playing a sweeper at times in the last couple of years. Didn't really work out for them. And just very poor against Dublin in the Leinster semi-final this year. Missed I had so many chances that day. Only put up a scoreline of 114, I think, and then obviously getting knocked out in the back door also. Really, really poor stuff. And I think Shefflin will be expected to go in and get the show going straight away. I mean, look at the forwards that they have. Conor Whelan, one of the best forwards in the game. He's only 24, maybe turning 25. Cathal Mannion, he was in hurler of the year form earlier in the year. Obviously, it didn't pan out that way, but he was looking excellent. Brian Kincannon, someone that we were looking at as a serious all-star contender, and you'd imagine he will be again. So these are just some of the players. Dahi Burke is there. Can he get a twist out of a few of the guys that have been there for a long time? Will Davy Burke get another year? What will he do? Darren Morrissey is a player that I thought looked quite good. So there's a lot that he has to work with there. But straight away, people are going to be looking to be challenging for titles. And there's absolutely no reason that Galway shouldn't be winning, at the very minimum, a Leinster title next year. That would, of course, mean they'd have to go through Kilkenny to get it. And even looking ahead to the Leinster Championship next year, I'm going to look it up as we're chatting here and try and see, are they due to be playing home or away against Kilkenny? Because I'm not sure that's been put up just yet. But I will look that up as we're going along here. I'll look up the 2019 championship and just see what way the round robins were that year. So just one moment, if you bear with me here. Yeah, I can't quite find it. But anyway, look, I looked that up for the Thursday hurling show. And just a couple of other points then to make. Well, let's look at some of the comments that people have flying in here. Start off with Michael Mulcair. Will Joe return now? It'll be interesting to see if that conversation happens. But I think most teams are built around speed these days. And if you're going to overtake the likes of Limerick, and obviously they have to overtake some of the teams in Leinster before they even get to that stage. All the Leinster teams are certainly behind Limerick at this stage, and Galway haven't won Leinster in a couple of years, so they have to get up there first. But whether bringing Joe back when you're going to have to build a forward line all around speed, it'd be interesting to see. I would say Galway people are fair relieved that Davy wasn't appointed, says it wasn't me. Galway people, do let me know what you think. I think there is an element of, certainly down towards the south parts of Galway, the likes of Gort and where have you, that aren't too far from Clare. The idea of someone from the other side of the border taking over would probably rub them up the wrong way. I mean, I kind of joked a little bit earlier in the year before Colin Bonner was appointed that if Davy Fitz was appointed Tipperary manager, I probably wouldn't support the team next year. But that is just the level of feeling. Obviously, that's nothing against Davy. It's just a rivalry between the two counties. And I'm sure that's probably the way it was seen there. And by the way, wearing the Orga Retro jersey, getting the Galway colours going for this. So go orgaretro.com, promo code OurGame. Shefflin versus Cody on the sideline. Tasty, says Jerry Brown. John Murphy, all right, Shane, this is great news. Roll on next year. It actually does add that level of excitement to the championship next year, because I want to see Henry Shefflin against Matty Kenny. I want to see Henry Shefflin against, Darragh Egan, obviously the Tipperary interest from my point of view. I just think it's going to be just so interesting. I'm sure you all feel the same. James S. Galway will put it up to Limerick now. Mulcair, interested to see who the backroom team will be. Will the likes of, Richie O'Neill be involved? There's names like that. Colin Cronin, if Ernie suggested this, you'd laugh, though. Be like 10th in your list. Yeah, if I presume you mean if Shefflin had been mentioned a couple of weeks ago, yeah, I would have, that's why it's such a shock. People weren't thinking that this would happen. Looking at the commute from Ballyhale, it's about 2.5 hours, depending on where in Galway you're going. If it's Clare Galway to do some of the winter training, I'd imagine, or Kenny Park and Athenry, you're looking at 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, 45 minutes, depending on the day, depending on the time. So it's going to be quite a commute, which, with a young family, that is a serious commitment, because he's obviously not going to do it for just 1 year only. It's not a one and done. So that is a serious commitment. Ian Blake, what county would turn down Henry? None, I suppose, is the answer straight away, says Ian Blake. Great appointment, lads. Will be buzzing with him in charge. Key will be to get good Galway lads involved in management who know the club scene. Yeah, absolutely. And once he has the best players in there, it's all on him then. Joe's not coming back. I want to believe it, but don't think so. Galway has an All-Ireland level squad, plenty for Sheff to work with. I thoroughly believe in that. In 2019, Kilkenny played Galway at Nolan Park, so should be at Pearse Stadium next year. Very fair point, Jerry. And actually, that was the year, if I remember correctly, when Joe Canning was unavailable. He had done his groin, I think, during the league at Nolan Park against Waterford. That challenge from Kevin Moore, and it ended up in a groin injury for Joe. But because Galway went down without him, everyone assumed that they'd get beaten. But that was actually one of the best performances we've seen from Galway against the Head. It was the same day that TJ Reid caught all those balls and played unbelievable. But that would kind of tell you that there's plenty in that team, even if you do take out the generational player. Galway versus Limerick would be interesting next year, intriguing if it happens. So look, that's it. The story was out first on OurGame. Don't forget where you saw it first, and please do follow the channel, subscribe on YouTube by hitting the button in the bottom right hand corner there. Just bring us over 9,000 there. We're looking to push them for 10,000. If you want the audio podcasts of the hurling shows, and even the Nicky Brennan one that I spoke with him earlier today, he's absolutely brilliant. Go to patreon.com/OurGame. So just support the channel everywhere, and the hurling show will be on tomorrow, Thursday.